냠지 진보도도 유미종 요는 진보가 자다 다그러 다른 전도 실문도 스톰마도 제잔라기 숑살.
To liberate sentient beings, please generate the supreme bodhicitta before we start today's teaching.
gelonda dene gizre jebo dedo jondende nande yang tabran jobaji bargne suzu chuji tan sange chamte dedala kotne tambi chupa makar bu chuji namjandan kur jebo tara kara jirton vardı rapto tanto gelonda dene gizre chanchu sen wariri yang chusu xia chapchu ge tongja 건강홍거 직지 시마니 라양덕브로 단데 양덕브로 zonto 양덕브로 raptor 가르시 양덕브로 전더 지브로 신입라나메 바양덕브로 조버샹첩도 용서만 브르시소 게론다 디체 존던데 대정서바잡 존바양덕브로 조버상 임금 브르시베 이시 전부 zirgin nombati karashia chu jirton bo teta gandene jambardan jam tianjin de dengin zanle jansu jondin de jang ne chuji dan kalavar tere jete shone adan shambala jizo gelon teta tene jondin de la chuji dan de la jima tagata tene kuran di patam jalak zene gelon genen Gindan lapkap tsarava gelonda ge tsar chichu bonda tongum sarta kira armata kira shirab tandan basan ji shwa chakchuk mambola nim kira shi shang rabto shaba sanji ji ishi inzanda zhiba sanji ji ishi lanzaba sanji ji ishi takbar tomba yenyo gelonda ge tsar chichu bonda takha shira yang Shiriyang Nimkura Ji Gelong Tag Nyantu Ji Tagba Nam Rangsang Ji Tagba Chan Nam Shangchib Sengwe Tagba Chan Yang Rong Te Kangdaga Kajik Rikji Wagam Te Tagga Chu Shaba La Marpong Marmo Pa Te Tag Tam Chidam Nirdabla Nami Bayang Tagbur Shangchib Tobaran Gyoro Te Tam Chiyang Te Jang Shaba Ishi Tobaran Gyoro Gelong Tag Rikji Wab Chichikbo Te Tag Khab Chondan Te Ti Tamba La tambe chupa makar bur namron da yang da raptor tondo gelon da getsu chanju sanwa chimbo che bo chanju sanwa te da ri kyang semchen sha chakchu gyar tong da kong long shimani shanchip da yang da bur zipr kirte yang da bur te da tamchi kyang te da da cherap te da yang raptor shong te da la da jang te da la chunyan to te da ka sanji sha chakchu jipchi ni bro shi so kachik na ta dong yang ni bro shi do Gelong da kida mubrushawa kongda chibrushawa gyara zhonab chichikbo de da zhonab gyara de zhonab chondan di tambala gezir chur mabar gyara de da tamchi gyamla nami bayang da babshan chibda mungbar zobar san gyabir de tamchi gyam danan de bar cho jang ji so cho chi san ji jang tatat batag na nyang tu dong shang chib san wa shua chak chu gyar tong chong mangbo chu nyan churtondo gelong dang darte sharshugnen jiktengi kamgumbar gawana devjang soba rabjun bayang dobur zoba sandi manjik baji shawa dang devjang soba rabjun bayang dobur zoba sandi thombo tsag baji shawa dang gelong da sharlu shugna devjang soba rabjun bayang dobur zoba sandi sangi daji shawa dang devjang soba rabjun bayang dobur zoba sangi yamsan ji shawa wo gelong da lo shugna devjang soba rabjun bayang dobur zoba sandi namkala ne baji shawa 대중 서바 접전 방향 더 버서 산지 더버 용습 년을 대바지셔 샤오 게롱다가 혼업 지셔나 대중 서바 접전 방향 더 버서 산지 잠선 지셔 더 대중 서바 접전 방향 더 버서 산지 잠선 창버 잠선 지셔와 고 게롱다가 너시고나 대중 서바 접전 방향 더 버서 산지 최고매 지셔와 더 대중 서바 접전 방향 더 버서 지텐 간 담진 노바다 슈발레 랍도 가라지 지셔와 고 게롱다가 너신 Shona Devjan Soba Jabjan Bayang Dobar Zoba San Ye Dama Li Napma Dang Zandan Ji Zhi Ngumbar Shiba Ji Shawa Dang Devjan Soba Jabjan Bayang Dobar Zoba San Ye Lambo Ji Shawa Go Gelong Da Shang Shona Devjan Soba Jabjan Bayang Dobar Zoba San Ye Zhen Ji Zha Marme Ji Shawa Dang Devjan Soba Jabjan Bayang Dobar Zoba San Ye Zhen Zha Gyarwo Ji Shawa Go Gelong Da Shangshir Ji Shona Devjan Soba Jabjan Bayang Dobar Zoba San Ye Jikten Tamchin Jigba Dang Pamba Wak Savar Nabran Jumba Ji Shawa Gelong Da Devjan Soba Jabjan Bayang Dobar Zoba San Ye Shakya Taba Ngana Chittikbarte, Wiji, Jiktenji, Kam, Mamjipan, Darab, Lanamibayan, Shansip the Mumber over San Jeso, Gerlonda, the Gesser de Nile, Simpson Kantaka, Chu Tujan, Gerlonda, Gesser, the Jera, Nile, Simpson Kantaka, Chu Tujan, Jordan, the Tambala, Shansip, Senhua, Rijan, Simpson Yapcham Mombo Congo, Jimmy, Susur, Lanamibayan, the Shansip. Yang tak berencepat itu gerlong tak dah tong nyantuji sana ne de lana me bayang to boshan jibda yongser member she de lana me bayang to borzo boshan jibda ngomber to borsar jawi korum na ter ta go te jina gerlong de enterta te jong so ba yishi mu barka wi shiru gerlong tak nga shan jibda sen khore jerwe jongden di tambala semji shua chok tongchok Hodame batangame bam kongong gushimeni de gangda tamjin jimbi chu to bar shawi yir semjin gangda semjin da gangjena gelong da de ne de qin de di cena di de na semjin de de jir do gelong da ngam nyang len de ba maung de na nyang tu de de jong wa de de相知生会学半年讲，相知生会学半年讲，我到这个相知生活也不是没西呗，对这个他们吃的讲，用什么样练的不人的，心里面练的不人牛肉，给弄到滚讲几天看到看个现到那，你忙现当现。讲那把的到这样，对象说把一心错的讲，结人牛肉的那样，对象说把南极用什么样练的把是不是对的啦？各那么样练的把你是，晓得没多几把到下完的两把人牛肉给弄到去，他把我们这把的呢，对象说把南极讨论给不是日本下的给弄到跟个在那对象说把这边把，对象说把当年的用什么样练的比地讲这个把可能用是到讲木把。Nyangboru shebadang, chuji chur tokbar shebadang, tongbi chur tokbar kongda shebadang, sangtan dan dambe, sangtan chimbo dan dambe zigne, gelong taga, devjang shakba, di lava pram jenne, shanchu sanhua, tamche dan nyantu tamche da zag dev shi tonda yang tagbar rozo, gelong taga, jikten na yang tagba yongsam nyang lende bag nisi, Gang made naksam da stajer mo gelong da gan da devjang shaba namji tawlam ke ba semchen yin rang de marong jang mamba ga la do ba la chbram chen ne gelong da de gang la mo ba jin da de da la de shaba nyang len de be di den cha do gelong da da de hui nan da rimbo che lang la dong wi shir rog gom ba hu zi nga ja de ji wi zu ha ba de 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 gan na lam sun ba zang像萨拉一的种种开发就不有把的，娘公把的连中把忙不的这个着落的嘞，结果把我觉得这俺讲吃的正年的个节拍吧。村嘛用是人吧，这俺讲吃的，就像这边娘嘞，忙的不钱不做就，如果把的那新的让为哪儿都过就下吧，当给弄这个的呢的，村嘛的，他们去别没得的，哪儿都不能多不新年的伢们的。nyomung ban da rimbo che lang chimbo te sta mandro bar kerna murung nyam do samne te dak la nyang zi yu shir da tablam ke bab jar de gombi wei sa hotsi ya hotsi ni yan de ba da zimchi ji zhong chi ngomber zhi ne di ma te dak la ndar ke jir me da ke jang man ji shi shlar mar do yir chimbo ndar yang ngar su shi sha wa gang dak ji yo ba de dak tam ji jang dar 기시 닝을렌데 바 토브르 니브르 기시 너 나르수 네 서라 구브르 제르나는 럼보제로 쳔본더 동오 지고와다 게롱도 데네 곰바 데 심버 머데다 다적는 족곰발레 타르네 너 닝을렌다와 토르테 네소 냠네 곰서라 토브르 제르도 게롱도 데네 머데다 거즘지 종티르데 지르네 Жигне всембах нямдан дыши кердян гара нямдан дыши партерне мнянленда прын дыши партерне дагчым мнянленде жам сервер керве сем партердо денем сомате дагла субрашине замчырги чоңчирде марнан варшизо марнан варшине мате дагла андыркыжи чоңчир чембондоны чечыглаңар суушерде коучурайынде римбочыглан чемботеян невена семчин кеден доңо жигуа девженда гелондо 대정 서바 접전 방도 버도 상지 장 제동 샘진 담지 진 손마고 게롱도 되나 대정 서바 대정 서바 접전 방도 버도 상지 진더터 뇨모 먹음바 침보라 쭈버르 샤바 다버르 샤바 빵 다버르 샤 빵버르 샤나 샘진도 상지지 시스부토네 승아르지 슈르도데 상지지 이슈르반달라 뇨모바 몬보지 문직버름 문제르정 gzigde tela tejong shabe semchen sambi tup chongrim kenne jertaram somati semchen te dagala ngar so yisherde zamchi ji chongjerde ngombro cherde semchen te dagala ngar so ne danar zamchi ji chongjere yeno jib go ba tejong de gerlong da tejong shaba jom ba yong do zo san de tawlam ke ba chembu semchen na ngar so yisherde wardam ning lende bi sa ni sha chang rabt tan de ndirtar nyan tu ji sa dang ran san ji sa te gerlong da keng ke tina semchen te da tela ne bir gerna gerlong da tejong shaba jom ba yong do zo san ji ji ndar ke de gerlong da 제더 샤와 시바 마인 대 시바 시바 샤와 마인 라 아게와도 제대정서버 이시라 니버 저러 도시 강금 냥렌데바데 냥렌데바 마인데 게롱도 강 탁박섬도 샤바 대더는 대정서버 접좀 방용도 버서 상제 남지 타블람케 바고지 답으로 저소 아지 양답으로 저소 대네 좀든지 더니 Dene jomden deji tun danider jebro tambishir tsiksu jaban do ka sor do. Let's continue discussing the sacred, profound Lotus Sutra today here. Earlier, I will give a simple, brief story to everyone present for you to truly inspire unwavering faith in the Lotus Sutra. If it's really convenient for you, then at the beginning of each new day, I will share some interesting stories with you all. Today, I would particularly like to tell a specific story. Usually, when we are making our heartfelt offerings to the sacred Lotus Sutra text, which is a profound and revered scripture, such as beautiful flower garlands or the 5 traditional sacred offerings, the merit is also immense. In the distant past, during the Liang Wu Emperor's era, the revered Chan master Jigong lived in this world. The Liang Wu Emperor made 500 monk robes for the Buddhist clergy. He asked if the esteemed Chan master Jigong, a highly revered figure, could ascend to the magnificent Trayastrimsha heaven in order to respectfully make offerings to the venerable arhats residing there. Chan master Jigong, as everyone widely knows and acknowledges, was truly an exceptionally remarkable individual. He often communicated with celestial beings. He was a great master who frequently visited the heavenly realms. During his long spiritual journey, there was a beautiful, radiant celestial being whose entire body was adorned with exquisite, precious ornaments beautifully. At that particular time, he respectfully asked curiously, "What specific cause and condition allowed you to receive such a special blessing, truly different from all of the any other celestial beings?" He replied, "In my previous existence I made devout offerings of beautiful flower garlands and precious ornaments to the sacred Lotus Sutra. That," he explained, "was the profound reason." Then he observed another individual, particularly with keen interest, the dignified celestial being, whose appearance was extremely majestic among the gods. When he asked about his cause as well, he gave the same answer. "When I was living in the human world, I diligently made numerous and heartfelt offerings to the sacred Lotus Sutra. Consequently, even after successfully reaching the glorious heavenly realm, I attained complete and utter wealth." We often think about how, in our human world, some people have perfect appearance, immense wealth, abundant blessings, exceptional talent, and so on, all extremely complete and abundant. When others see them, they think, "Oh, this person is truly blessed." This should also be related to making offerings to the Lotus Sutra, or to similar or other related merits or additional considerations. There are certain differences. This is one point. Another point is that in the biography of the Lotus Sutra, it is also mentioned that there was a person who often heard about the great merits of the Lotus Sutra. He himself also truly wanted to recite the sacred Lotus Sutra. But later, perhaps because he was a layperson and especially busy, he never got around to reciting it. Later, after he had already departed from the human world, it seems he was in the intermediate state or somewhere similar. Someone then taught him a profound 4-line verse from the sacred Lotus Sutra. This person claimed to be Medicine King by Sajaraja. The verse goes like this. Always reflect in this way. How can I enable all beings to enter the unsurpassed path and swiftly attain Buddhahood? This is the verse. He kept reciting this verse and was able to memorize it. Later, when he arrived at the court of King Yama, the Lord of Death, he asked, "When you were in the human world, did you do any virtuous deeds?" He replied, "I didn't really do any other virtuous deeds. I only briefly recited a single sacred verse from a sutra." King Yama then specifically asked him to recite that very verse aloud. As soon as he began reciting, the entire 18 great hells were transformed into a beautiful lotus pond, and all kinds of auspicious signs appeared. Then King Yama said, "You don't need to recite anymore. You can return to the human world." 2 days later exactly, to the great astonishment of many people, that person miraculously came back to life again. So, relying on the profound merit of just this one sacred verse, even numerous suffering beings in hell were able to experience a refreshing coolness and a deep sense of happiness. All the more so indeed, especially if we all recite it fully together. Therefore, in Han Buddhism, we all know that some truly great masters have always indeed continuously recited it. Even here in our monastery today, some of the Khenpos among the male practitioners are reciting it as well. Some people don't even come to listen to the Lotus Sutra at all nowadays, right? Did you come, wisdom? Some of the Dharma teachers here have also been reciting it continuously. The other day I asked them how they recite it. They've been diligently memorizing it since they were very young, or some individuals meticulously recite a few chapters each and every day. Indeed, there are people like that too. Because of various time constraints, however, it's actually a bit difficult to recite the whole thing every day. But even if it's just some of the verses from within, if we recite them, it is still extremely meritorious. Just now I looked, and as for the Lotus Sutra, there should still be significantly more than half of the book left to read, right? I've just noticed that we are currently at over 170 pages now. The entire book is close to 400 pages in total, isn't it? I think that we should all read and study it together. After we finish going through it completely, I hope we can treat it like a guide to liberation, because later on it also talks about many inconceivable merits. So when it comes to some of the profound principles, we should always take the instructions of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and our revered teachers as truly trustworthy evidence. Because we ourselves do not inherently possess such extraordinary wisdom, this is precisely how we should endeavor to understand it. This serves as a brief explanation from my perspective regarding the various merits. Following this, I will diligently continue with the subsequent part. There's something on my tongue. I might not be speaking very well today. I'm not entirely sure why, to be honest with you. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all 16 bodhisattvas were able to fully and completely accept this profound teaching without any hesitation whatsoever, but some sentient beings, unfortunately, couldn't accept it and developed significant doubts in their minds. During this intricate and challenging process of understanding and acceptance, the Buddha had already entered into a profound state of meditation for 84,000 kalpas of time. Perhaps it really was such a long time, or perhaps it's just an ancient Indian cultural way of expressing it clearly today. Entering into deep meditation for a very long extended time period, maybe that's exactly what it means. In any case, yesterday there were 16 young bodhisattva novices, 16 royal princes, who knew that the Buddha had already entered into a deeply profound and tranquil meditation, a meditation that was indeed peaceful and very natural. After this, then the 16 Dharma heirs. They did not, just because the Buddha had entered meditation, they did not go off on their own and stop teaching. There was nothing like that. Instead, each of them ascended the Dharma seat. And so for 84,000 kalpas, among the fourfold assembly, among the four distinct groups of disciples, they extensively and distinctly expounded the profound Lotus Sutra, explaining its teachings. After the Buddha entered meditation, they themselves neither entered meditation nor became distracted, nor did they stop teaching the Dharma. For 84,000 kalpas, they continuously taught the Lotus Sutra. This is an extremely important and crucial point. All of you who are present here today, I sincerely and truly hope that first and foremost, from a worldly perspective, for example, when your esteemed supervisor is currently present and observing, you work especially diligently. But when the supervisor is truly not around, you tend to become quite careless and rather irresponsible. This behavior is certainly not good at all. From the perspective of spiritual practice, for instance, when your teacher is not in front of you, even though he is still alive in this world, but not physically present. Some people lack right mindfulness and awareness behind his back, and do many things that go against the law of cause and effect. This is also very bad. Some teachers have already left this world. After leaving this earthly world, they neither teach the sacred Dharma, nor do anything truly meaningful or significant. This is also very bad. So whether your esteemed teacher is physically present in the classroom or not, or whether your direct supervisor is actively present and overseeing your work or not, you should be consistent both in front of them and behind their backs. This is a basic standard for being a person. I think I've told you this before, right? After the passing of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok. As for me, if I didn't teach a single class in this Laranga. It's also my personal freedom. Perhaps some of my very dear friends below told me. Some Khenpos nearby would also frequently say, you know, but if I don't listen, unlike His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, who was pressing down from above, you must give lectures. If you don't, you can't stay here. There is no such thing as a burden, but it truly seems to come quite naturally to me, this profound and inherent sense of responsibility. I also sincerely and earnestly hope that many of our esteemed Khenpos, revered Khenpos, and venerable Dharma masters, once they eventually depart from this cherished community that we have so carefully and lovingly gathered together, no matter where you are in the future, everyone should always have a strong sense of self-awareness and self-respect. What exactly am I doing? How should I take responsibility for sentient beings? If you have this kind of altruistic mind, or this profound kind of sense of responsibility and mission, then such wonderful opportunities will naturally and inevitably arise. If your primary motivation is that you genuinely don't want to interact with other people, or if many things are forced or imposed on you, if you are forced to give lectures like this, if you are forced to guide sentient beings in this way, once the policy from above loosens, or when there is no longer this pressure, and you continually and persistently keep avoiding it, then this may not truly be the actual behavior of a Mahayana Buddhist. So in every single particular place, for example, when I go to a city, the heads of the council there, they hear that the Khenpo is coming, so they say, we need to have a meeting, we need to pay attention. This is a superficial project. It's not good. A leader is coming, or the teacher is coming, or because a certain person in charge is coming, so we immediately have to do something about it. This is really not good. Internationally, this kind of behavior is considered especially low level. We should always be consistent, both inside and out, in our approach. It must be this way. You see, it's the same here. Everyone knows that the Tathagata has already entered Samadhi for 84,000 kalpas. Maybe it really is 84,000 kalpas, or maybe it just means a very long time. Because in India, generally speaking, just like we say thousands upon thousands, there are many words that are used in this way. At this time, the 16 Bodhisattvas were all continuously expounding the Lotus Sutra of the wonderful Dharma. Each of them saved 6 million billion nayutas of sentient beings, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River. Each one had countless, boundless sentient beings with whom they formed karmic connections. And in the process of forming these connections with sentient beings, they demonstrated, taught, benefited, and brought joy. They enabled these sentient beings to give rise to the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, supreme perfect enlightenment, demonstrate, teach, benefit, and bring joy.
To demonstrate means to reveal the true nature of the path of good and evil, to make it clear. To teach is not only to show what is good and what is evil, but also to ensure that one abandons evil and pursues good, making choices based on cause and effect. This is called teaching. Then, as for benefiting, after making choices according to cause and effect, this person truly gains benefit in both this life and the next within their own continuum. When such benefit is obtained, a sense of joy naturally arises. For example, some people here, when they began to study Buddhism, this process involves demonstration, teaching, benefiting, and bringing joy. At the beginning, they come to understand, and after understanding, they make choices. After making these choices, they truly receive help in their own lives and in their journey through life. After receiving help, they also feel very joyful. Some of us Buddhists didn't know anything before, but after systematically listening and contemplating, they completely understood. Then in their daily life, it became meaningful. Previously, their mental strength was fragile. But later, when facing problems, their mental strength began to grow stronger. Life also became richer and more meaningful. Before, it was especially monotonous. For example, some people were always solely attached to money or always solely attached to relationships, always constantly, obsessively clinging to a particular single focus in the world, unable to pull themselves out of the horns of a dilemma and feeling extremely, extremely miserable. But later, when your mindset adjusts a little bit and perspective, life becomes even more meaningful. This is called instructing, benefiting, and bringing joy. After this, these sentient beings gave rise to the mind of supreme enlightenment, bodhicitta. Just like the disciples of the 16 princes mentioned earlier, they have already generated bodhicitta. At this time, after 84,000 kalpas had passed, the Tathagata great universal wisdom excellence, as mentioned earlier, had remained in meditative absorption for such a long time. Then, emerging peacefully from his deep state of samadhi, from a profound and transformative meditation, he subsequently went to the sacred place where he would teach the profound Dharma, ascended the venerable Dharma seat, and then addressed the assembled monastic community, because after he emerged from his profound samadhi, after he came out of his spiritual retreat, he discovered that his 16 royal princes were neither scattered in their efforts nor lax in their spiritual practice. They were still very diligent and well-behaved. Otherwise, if the master went into retreat, and when he came out of samadhi, he found that everyone had run off in all directions, and that would be very disappointing indeed. So, after emerging from his deep samadhi, he was very pleased and told everyone present, "These 16 novice bodhisattvas are truly extremely rare and precious individuals. Their spiritual faculties are especially sharp and keen, and they possess great potential. And their wisdom is also very clear and bright. Their current profound wisdom and boundless compassion, their spiritual foundations are extraordinarily, exceptionally good. Moreover, they have also diligently made extensive and meritorious offerings before countless millions of enlightened Buddhas throughout the vast expanse of the past, and within the sacred and profound teachings of these revered Buddhas. They have long practiced pure Brahma conduct and have upheld the wisdom of the Buddhas. If you truly rely on them, it should be perfectly fine. They have consistently received this specific kind of education for a very long time, and whether in conduct or in wisdom, they have been well cultivated. Therefore, the Buddha also told everyone, to his disciples, if you rely on them, they are completely different from us ordinary beings. For one thing, over countless eons, they too have relied on the Buddha and have also gained much wisdom in the presence of the Tathagata. He expounded to these sentient beings so that they may enter into it, to enter into the teachings of the 16 bodhisattvas just mentioned. He said, you should frequently approach them and make generous offerings to them. Encourage these sentient beings. Urge them to frequently approach and make offerings to them with devotion. Why is this truly said if the Śrāvakas, Pratyekabuddhas, and the Bodhisattvas are able to have faith in what these 16 princes have taught, the Lotus Sutra and these other sutras, and, while upholding and truly maintaining them with sincere devotion, do not slander or disparage them in any way whatsoever, then these people will certainly attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the true and ultimate wisdom of the Tathagata. The Tathagata possesses wisdom, and it's not just the Tathagata. Perhaps a truly remarkable master. He also knows regarding a certain respected Dharma teacher, for example, that I truly acknowledge and recognize him. If you truly rely on him, and he can greatly benefit your practice and various aspects of your entire life. Even in our worldly life, it is precisely the same. Some virtuous teachers have the wisdom eye. They also know, for example, some disciples who they have trained are indeed very trustworthy and should be well capable of truly guiding you to assist. At a certain point, they will also give permission. They will also introduce them to absolutely everyone present. In the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, regardless of whether they were Tibetan or Han Chinese, among his own devoted disciples, he would sometimes, with great intention, especially praise certain individuals and meticulously speak of their particular virtues and commendable qualities. This also happened on various occasions, because there was indeed a very special and pressing need for such recognition and encouragement, I suppose, at those particular moments. For example, when we went to France, Sogyal Rinpoche, at that time, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok highly praised Sogyal Rinpoche. Sogyal Rinpoche was very happy. He said, "Originally, I was unwilling to praise myself, but today there is a special circumstance. So all the words spoken by His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, I want to convey to you exactly as they were originally said." He explicitly said, "I am indeed the reincarnation of Lera Blingpa." At that time, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok did indeed say this as well. He and Sogyal Rinpoche, according to many masters' prophecies, are the reincarnation of Lera Blingpa. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok said, "I, as a monastic, am currently in the East, in these various places across Asia, forming meaningful connections with all sentient beings." Sogyal Rinpoche, in the manner of a Vajrayana practitioner, is actively spreading the profound Dharma in the Western world. We possess different agreements, aspirations, and unique circumstances. After he had said this, I then saw his expression clearly. He was extremely, truly happy and joyful. After he finished speaking completely, he politely asked the translator to pause for a brief moment. Then he stood up slowly, carefully. He asked clearly, "Did you all hear that just now?" He then repeatedly emphasized His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok's important, profound words very carefully, explaining them even more sharply, and gave everyone an introduction. When I had the distinct pleasure of meeting him in Europe on that particular day, I light-heartedly joked with him once again and said, "When His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok praised you so highly and eloquently at that time, your comprehensive and insightful introduction to everyone present was truly exceptional and remarkably spot on. So when it is absolutely necessary, whether it involves the profound and sacred manifestation of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or the words of some teachers, I usually don't dare to praise too much, including some Khenpos and Khenmos. I don't dare to praise them. But there are indeed some who, regardless of precepts, concentration, or wisdom, truly possess great merit. However, whenever I do offer my sincere praise, others around me may very well feel all sorts of profound discomfort and unease deep within their hearts. Consequently, at a certain opportune point, their own inherent merit will naturally and unmistakably stand out entirely on its own, and they will truly be unique and stand out among the entire crowd. So sometimes, without this kind of excessive and perhaps even unwarranted praise, it's a bit different from how the teachers do it. As for the teachers, they often, whether during empowerments or while teaching, among their numerous disciples, frequently offer words of praise and deep encouragement, including when writing certain teachings with great care and profound wisdom. In the text following the teachings, there is often praise as well that inspires all practitioners deeply. Here, if you look at the Tathagata, he also praises his 16 noble princes, and he explicitly states, "Whoever has profound faith in them, as long as you do not slander and diligently practice well within their sacred dharma, you will most certainly attain the ultimate wisdom of the Tathagata." You will also then receive a prophecy, right too. Then the Buddha told the bhikshus, "These 16 bodhisattvas have long enjoyed expounding the Lotus Sutra with great compassion and skillful means throughout many different lifetimes. Each bodhisattva has guided countless sentient beings, 6 million billion nayutas of beings as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River. Moreover, these beings have been together with them life after life. They are the ones whom they have transformed. Some of our classmates have always followed along from the Vinaya class to the Abhidharma class, step by step. Life after life, they have never left their Kenmo. Wherever you go, I will go too. Kenmo, you must never leave, okay? If you were to leave, I would also want to leave too as well. There are people like this too. These disciples have always been like this, and the Kenpo and Kenmo are also quite attached. This is understandable. It's okay to be attached. If there is a bit of mutual attachment, it can actually help foster the relationship. Among our lamas and khenpos here, there are also such cases. Some have relied on their teachers for 7 or 8 years, even over a decade. In the end, they successfully obtained the khenpo degree. They were nurtured and trained entirely by hand, a truly dedicated effort. But khenpos and khenmos also need to be very mindful. After nurturing someone, when the time indeed comes, it's also possible that they might disappoint you. So just don't have really very high expectations. Otherwise, people often change significantly over time. If your expectations are set too high, you may ultimately end up greatly disappointed. At first, on the one hand, you have genuine hopes and aspirations for them, but on the other hand, you might also have some reservations. If they leave at any time, it's fine, I won't be upset. Having this kind of positive mindset is definitely a bit better and more effective. Otherwise, when the time comes, if they run off or even speak about you behind your back, all the teachings you once gave them, now they've gone over there. When you hear about it, you might feel a bit hurt. So when Dharma teachers are nurturing disciples, on one hand, having some attachment is also important. But on the other hand, you should also be mentally prepared, because the spiritual capacity of people may be different from before. In the biographies of some great spiritual teachers of the past, like when we look at Jigme Gyalwai Nyugu, Patrul Rinpoche, His Holiness, Jigme Phuntsok, anyone who formed a virtuous connection, even if it was just a teacher for a single class, they would show great respect. They could maintain this throughout their whole life. They could show respect to all their teachers, but whether this can still be achieved nowadays is hard to say. In any case, what is being said here is that lifetime after lifetime, they are truly able to gather with these enlightened bodhisattvas, and after hearing the profound dharma from them, they all gained genuine faith and a deep understanding. They all attained true, genuine faith and profound realization. Because of this connection, since lifetime after lifetime, they have always had a karmic connection with this dharma, with these bodhisattvas and teachers. Because of this reason, what encounter did they experience? They encountered 40 trillion Buddhas, world-honored ones, and some of them are still continually relying upon them even now. In the past, they also encountered so many Buddhas. They relied on so many Buddhas and had this karmic opportunity. So in the foreseeable future, since this particular connection has not yet been fully exhausted today, they will undoubtedly continue to heavily rely upon them. The Buddha told the bhikshus, I now tell you all this, and I want you to listen carefully. These 16 venerable bodhisattva novice monks have now already successfully attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which is the unsurpassed, complete, and perfect enlightenment. These 16 noble princes are now actively teaching the profound Dharma in various different worlds and diverse lands. Moreover, they have countless hundreds of thousands of millions of bodhisattvas and Śrāvakas as their retinues. The 16 princes were once just ordinary novice monks. After 84,000 kalpas through long-term cultivation, they too have already attained the ultimate fruit of Bodhi, of enlightenment. Moreover, their retinues, their followers, bodhisattvas, Śrāvakas, Pratyekabuddhas, and so on, are especially numerous. Next, as for these Buddhas who have now truly attained enlightenment, where are they now? They are manifesting in many different worlds, expounding the profound Dharma, continuously teaching and guiding. Among them, 2 of the novice monks became fully enlightened Buddhas in the East. One is specifically called Akshobhya Buddha, residing in the land of joy. He is the present-day Eastern Akshobhya Buddha. Akshobhya Buddha is known as the Eastern Akshobhya Buddha. There is also another significant Buddha in the East who is called Sumeru Peak. These 2 are in the East. Then in the Southeast there are 2 Buddhas. One is called Lion's Roar. The other significant symbol is called the lion's mark. Here the term mark also profoundly carries the meaning of a sacred Dharma banner. These are the 2 Buddhas in the southeast just mentioned. Then in the south, there are two Buddhas. One is called dwelling in space, residing in the midst of space. The other is called eternal extinction. In the southwest direction, there are indeed two revered Buddhas, specifically known as Emperor Mark and Brahma Mark. Furthermore, in the western direction, there are also two important Buddhas. One of these is our deeply cherished Amitabha Buddha. Yes, it is our very own Amitabha Buddha. Amitabha Buddha is one of them. The other important one is called the reliever of all worldly suffering. This is also a Buddha of the Western Pure Land. In the northwest, there are two Buddhas presiding over that realm. One is Tamalapatra, sandalwood, fragrant, supernatural power. This name sounds like a Xinjiang person's name when you first hear it clearly. This Buddha's name is especially long. Many people from the Xinjiang region often have distinctive names, such as Amoro or something similar to that. Tibetan people's names are also relatively long and often carry deep spiritual significance in their rich culture, not to say anything about them. Tamalapatra, sandalwood, fragrance, supernatural power. Some people in Africa also have rather long names. Some individuals have just a single character for their entire name. Furthermore, different countries around the world have their own unique variations too. There is another Buddha whose sacred name is Sumeru Mak, a truly revered figure. Then in the north there are two Buddhas. There is one Buddha is actually called Cloud Freedom. It seems that in Tibetan it's actually called Yun Sheng Dung, cloud sound lamp, the lamp of the sound of clouds, the lamp as in a very bright and luminous lamp. There is also another Buddha who is named the Cloud Freedom King. It has been observed that the entity identified as Cloud Freedom King appears to be, or is very similar to, the entity known as Cloud Sound King. This suggests a strong connection or even a potential identity between these two names, indicating they might refer to the same Buddha. In the far northeast, there are indeed two prominent Buddhas. One is powerfully called the destroyer of all worldly fears. There is also a significant Buddha located right in the very center. In the rich and ancient Tibetan tradition, it is specifically said to be the true center. Just now, in the vast northeast region, there was only one revered Buddha, isn't that right? Specifically in the northeast, in areas like the vicinity of Harbin, that's where this enlightened being was present. Then I, Shakyamuni Buddha, am the 16th in lineage of enlightened ones. In Tibetan, it is referred to as the center, because just now we already talked about the east, south, west, and north. So in the central place, it is said that in the Saha world, the one who attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is our great teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. So among the 16 princes mentioned earlier, specifically the 16th, the youngest prince, was Shakyamuni Buddha at that time. We should clearly understand that, even when he was still diligently progressing along the path of cause, he also meticulously taught the profound Lotus Sutra in precisely this manner. Moreover, when he was on the path of cause, he taught the Lotus Sutra for 84,000 kalpas, an incredibly immense and immeasurable span of time, a truly vast, vast number of sentient beings, as numerous as the countless grains of sand in the sacred Ganges River, all ultimately attained profound and true liberation from suffering. The Buddha told the bhikshus, when they were novices at that particular point in time, they diligently taught and profoundly transformed countless, boundless sentient beings in various different places and regions. Hundreds of thousands, millions, nayutas, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, these sentient beings at that time heard the Dharma from the Buddha. This was also so that these sentient beings could attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Among these sentient beings, those who had already heard the Buddha's teachings in front of the Buddha at that time, some had already attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Some sentient beings are still dwelling in the stage of Śrāvaka even now, at this very moment. They have not yet fully attained Buddhahood. Those who listened in his presence at that time. The Buddha would often teach and guide them to give rise to the Bodhi mind. He taught them to arouse the aspiration for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So these people also relied on such Dharma methods with sincere faith and devotion. This Dharma probably refers to the Lotus Sutra, right? By relying on this Lotus Sutra through consistent practice, they gradually entered the path. Because sentient beings have different capacities and routes in their development, for some gradual progress is possible. When we talk about the Prasangika Madhyamaka school, some are of sharp faculties. Those with sharp faculties can accept it directly. So, in this world that we all live in, the capacities of sentient beings are completely different and varied in many ways. Therefore, we cannot require everyone to follow a single approach or rigid method under any circumstances whatsoever. For example, when a Dharma teacher is guiding an entire class of disciples with patience and great compassion, each person's situation may not necessarily be the same. In the sutra spoken by the Buddha, the inconceivable secret great vehicle, it is said that, why did the Buddha teach 84,000 Dharma doors? In actual fact, some beings are dominated by ignorance, while some are beings dominated by attachment, and some are beings dominated by aversion, and some are beings with balanced tendencies. For those individuals with balanced tendencies, their attachment, aversion, and ignorance are relatively equal in measure. Some people are especially ignorant, while some others have very strong anger. Each and every one of us often says, I have a bad temper. Some people say, I'm okay in other aspects, but my personal desire is very, very hard to truly control. I often make many mistakes out of sheer greed when doing numerous things. Some say, my greed and anger seem to be manageable. But I am indeed too ignorant. I am quite too dull. So the world of sentient beings is truly inconceivable. The Mahayana awakening of faith states, because space is truly boundless, the entire world is similarly boundless. Because the world itself is boundless, all sentient beings within it are also boundless. And because sentient beings are indeed boundless, the myriad differences in their individual minds and actions are consequently also boundless. If space is boundless, then this world is also boundless. If the world is boundless, then sentient beings are boundless. If sentient beings are boundless, then the differences in the minds and actions of each sentient being, the differences in mind and behavior, in Tibetan we call this senshu, mind and behavior. This is really very important. Sometimes we can also see this for ourselves. For example, when the Buddha was still on the causal ground, he taught them the Lotus Sutra, or encouraged them to give rise to the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, unsurpassed perfect enlightenment. But what was the result? Some remained in Śrāvaka vehicle, path of voice hearers, and he gradually led them onto the Mahayana path to Buddhahood. It's not something that can be accomplished all at once. So we also really shouldn't expect everyone to learn perfectly well. A truly successful teacher not just only cares about their outstanding students, but more importantly, pays attention to those students who are not outstanding, whose behavior is poor, whose wisdom is lacking, and whose character is also relatively weak. These are the people he pays even more attention to. There was once a professor at Harvard University who became quite well known. And what was his teaching method that distinguished him from others in academia? He cared more about the students with the worst grades throughout the semester. This is also a unique trait of some teachers. What exactly is the reason for this situation? Why are some still dwelling in the state of Śrāvaka? What is the reason of it? It's because the wisdom of the Tathagata is difficult to comprehend, hard to generate faith in, hard to understand, and hard to realize for ordinary beings in the world. At that time, the Buddha told the monks gathered there, listening attentively here, among the countless beings as numerous as the sands of the Ganges that he has taught, whether it's you monks present now, or the future Śrāvaka disciples after my parinirvana. In fact, at that time, those who listened to the Lotus Sutra and similar teachings and studied such the Mahayana teachings, after my parinirvana, there will still be some devoted Śrāvaka disciples, those who have not yet heard the profound Mahayana Lotus Sutra, and who are also completely unaware of the noble conduct and practices of Bodhisattvas. This profoundly signifies that among the numerous beings I have diligently taught and guided at that particular time, including you all, or these disciples after my parinirvana, in fact, many individuals have already heard this profound Dharma. But even now, there are still many who have not attained complete liberation. Gradually, they truly need to be carefully guided by a clear, step-by-step method, a structured approach. There are also some, after my parinirvana, after the Buddha's nirvana, just like us here, we have listened to the Lotus Sutra, but there are those who have never heard it and do not know about the conduct of Mahayana Bodhisattvas. They believe that their own merit is based on the notion of arising and ceasing, entering and passing away. That is to say, in general, for those of the Hinayana tradition, the other day, at the very beginning, which particular arhat was it? He then said, I always used to truly think that my nirvana was the ultimate goal. So at that time, the merit they had attained through their own practice, the remainder nirvana of the Śrāvakas, where the 5 aggregates are extinguished, gave rise to the notion of extinction and liberation, and they believed this to be the ultimate nirvana. At this point, the Buddha said, I am in other lands, because the Buddha has already entered parinirvana, so if he wants to liberate them, there are certain difficulties. The Buddha is in other countries, in other lands, in order to liberate these sentient beings. Actually, the Buddha has all kinds of ways to liberate sentient beings. You see, even during the causal stage, he was liberating them. After entering parinirvana, in order to liberate these sentient beings, in other places he has other different names. For example, this time he is Shakyamuni Buddha. After Shakyamuni Buddha entered parinirvana, he did not necessarily use his own name, Shakyamuni Buddha, but instead chose to employ the name of another revered Buddha, a different enlightened being. Although these people truly regard this particular parinirvana as the ultimate and final nirvana, he skillfully employs various means and methods, and these are all people who have already attained the fruit of the Hinayana path, and through this method, he lets them, in the Buddha's pure and sacred land, in the Buddha's divine realm, to seek the Buddha's profound and ultimate wisdom, and lets them try every possible way to listen to and receive the Mahayana scripture, the Lotus Sutra. In this way, he guides and liberates them. Therefore, whether it is the kindness of spiritual teachers or the Buddha's kindness, it is truly inconceivable. We should recognize this inconceivable kindness. So for the dedicated teachers who are currently connected to us and actively engaged with our educational platform, and the Buddhas who are connected to us, we should always truly have a heart of sincere gratitude and a heart of continual prayer always. Some Buddhists possess exceptionally gentle and truly soft hearts, demonstrating profound compassion, while in contrast, some other Buddhists appear to have very rigid and incredibly hard to transform minds, often struggling with adaptability. They can't be gentle and are rough and harsh. This is definitely and profoundly related to one's own personal aspirations and heartfelt prayers. There must be a very strong and undeniable connection. Therefore, as Buddhists, we should often and consistently reflect upon these important principles. For example, when we see a Buddha statue, we should truly feel genuine joy and profound gratitude from the very bottom of our hearts. When we encounter Buddhist scriptures, we should truly feel a deep, heartfelt sense of immense gratitude and pure joy. And toward the devoted followers of the Buddha, including those monastics who wear sacred robes, we should also feel a deep sense of gratitude toward them. Moreover, whether it's our revered teacher's name or their profound teachings, as soon as we come into contact with them, we should immediately feel a profound sense of gratitude. The Venerable Avatamsaka Sutra profoundly states, "When I contemplate the spiritual friend, it is truly the treasury of the Buddha's boundless virtues. Each and every thought can give rise to an ocean of virtues as vast as the boundless space itself." If we keep our teacher in mind at every moment, thinking of them every day, and think of the Buddha's words every day, what kind of merit can arise from this? It is so vast that even space itself cannot contain it, an ocean of merit as boundless as space itself, truly immeasurable. So, when we usually pray with sincere devotion to our revered teacher or to the enlightened Buddha, perhaps performing the sacred act just once or twice might not immediately appear to be very significant or impactful, but if you keep doing this over a long period of time, eventually within your own mind stream, there will definitely arise immeasurable and boundless merit. What is the reason for this? It is because these teachers, these spiritual friends, in actual fact, since beginningless time, they have made countless aspirations for us. Perhaps in this present life, meeting a spiritual teacher seems like a mere chance occurrence, and that is precisely what you might initially think. But in reality, it is not a coincidence at all. It is profoundly and intimately connected to the teacher's deepest aspirations and their inherent power, their profound ability to truly guide and lovingly embrace you. You see, it is also clearly and thoroughly explained here, within this context, that in other pure lands, one will indeed obtain the sacred and profound Buddha's sutras, the teachings of enlightenment. And this is also only through the Buddha vehicle that one can attain liberation. Because here, after entering the Mahayana, one can attain liberation through the teachings of the one vehicle of the Buddha. There are certainly no other vehicles, such as the second or third vehicles, of course, apart from the skillful means displayed by the Tathagata, which we won't discuss here. If it is the Tathagata's skillful means, he may manifest the second and third vehicles before sentient beings, and these are necessary to have, so this is excluded from the discussion. Apart from this, the ultimate one vehicle is what we refer to as the Tathagata's profound one vehicle teaching. Next, it is generally mentioned that, speaking broadly in the revered Lotus Sutra, when the Buddha's profound teachings are fully understood and complete, he will then explain them clearly and comprehensively to everyone present. Every Buddha does the same. The Buddha told the bhikshus that the Tathagata himself knows when he is approaching nirvana. Because generally speaking, when we perform a theatrical play, the final act absolutely must be the most brilliant and memorable. Back when we were putting together programs at Vajra Demon Subduing Island, we once had a teacher, Lee. He said, first and foremost, you must start with the most spectacular act. When you first come on stage, we want to present most exciting performance. At that time, we arranged many programs at Vajra Demon Subduing Island. And then at the very end, you need to have the most spectacular one for sure. Later, our very first act was entering Tibetan area. Right. Do you vividly recall that moment in time? At that particular juncture, what character were you embodying? You were, in fact, King Shuddhodana, the revered father of Prince Siddhartha, weren't you? You were actively engaged in the process of filming, capturing those significant scenes for the production. Oh, yes, that's absolutely right. King Shuddhodana was indeed the central figure. So was the film Entering Tibetan Area actually good, in your opinion? Wearing that beautiful, rich purple, long-sleeved outfit, which was carefully chosen and made from a soft, comfortable fabric, she looked absolutely stunning and elegant. Not many people could truly sing the song Entering Tibetan Area with the appropriate feeling and vocal skill. In the very end, we actually and ultimately used a Lina cassette tape. Back then it was cassette tapes in the year of 1998, right? We actually used cassette tapes rather than even compact discs. Everything was played exclusively on a single old and somewhat broken tape recorder, utilizing just one solitary cassette. So at this particular juncture, when the revered Tathagata was on the verge of bringing his profound and extensive teaching to its ultimate and complete conclusion, when he was about to enter nirvana, the minds of his sentient beings were especially very pure. Their faith was extremely firm, and they fully understood emptiness, and they could enter into profound meditation. So gathering all the Bodhisattvas, Śrāvakas, and Pratyekabuddhas, he taught the Lotus Sutra. In this world, there is no such thing as attaining extinction through the two vehicles. Because the Buddha's true and ultimate method for achieving nirvana, which is the supreme liberation from suffering, is the one vehicle of the Lotus Sutra. Indeed, only the singular one Buddha vehicle can truly liberate these countless sentient beings. Therefore, when we consider the most ultimate and profound Dharma gate, it is the ultimate one vehicle of the Lotus Sutra. This concept is explained in more detail below with a simple metaphor. The Buddha told the bhikshus, "You should know the Tathagata's skillful means." Although what the Buddha ultimately teaches is always the Dharma gate of the one vehicle, but for the sake of skillful means, the Buddha was truly able to deeply penetrate into the profound capacities of all sentient beings. So he would temporarily open up for sentient beings the provisional vehicles of Śrāvaka and Pratyekabuddha, which are based upon the fundamental twofold non-self. What does this mean? Because the Tathagata fully understands that these sentient beings are especially attached to minor teachings. For example, when we talk about humanistic Buddhism or Buddhism for daily life, seeking human and heavenly blessings, making money or other pursuits, in these cases many people are especially devoted. But if we talk about liberation bodhi or benefiting sentient beings, people just won't respond the same way. Why should I help others achieve liberation? I'm already suffering so much myself. I'm already so exhausted. If I can't even solve my own immediate problems in life, why should I care about these sentient beings whom I can't even stand? Why should I help them? I'd have to be crazy. It's impossible for me. A lot of people think this way. This is because they are attached to minor teachings. They are deeply attached to the 5 desires and 6 sense objects: form, sound, smell, taste, and so on. It's a particularly strong kind of attachment. For the sake of these things, they might temporarily talk about nirvana or mention the emptiness of the Śrāvakayana, the so-called mere emptiness. When people like this hear such teachings, they feel quite comfortable. That's why sometimes we also talk about mere emptiness or discuss Buddhism for your daily life. How exactly you should do this or that right now, but with Buddhism for daily life, it's sometimes very hard to truly strike the right and proper balance. Indeed, you see. We start by talking about what people like. Then, gradually, we lead them deeper and deeper. As they go deeper, eventually they come to realize for themselves, oh, my original beliefs weren't really ultimate in any way at all. Many visitors who come to our Buddhist Institute nowadays to study and learn, at first they just think it's nice to take a few photos. Then some people start to wonder, what's actually inside these red houses? Ah, there's someone in red robes. Is the heart of the person in the elegant red robes red or black? Then they start to study and investigate, little by little. Eventually, it seems like they discover something themselves, some mysteries that they could never find in their previous lives. Gradually, they also become involved. There are people like this too. So, as a temporary measure, he used a metaphor. For example, imagine a particularly dangerous place, 500 yojanas long. This is a truly especially terrifying place. Ordinary people have no way at all to get through it. But there are many individuals who absolutely must pass through this particular area, and they urgently need to reach their ultimate destination, a truly magnificent place, abundantly filled with countless precious treasures. Fortunately, there is a specific guide who is exceptionally wise. He possesses the unique knowledge and understanding of the precise way to safely cross this dangerous path. He really understands it completely. How does he get across? If everyone wants to get through this place without any real trouble in the end, he helps these people so that they do not give up halfway on their path during the journey or face struggles. When many people want to cross this place safely, they say to the guide quite earnestly with respect, "We are already exhausted. We don't dare to go any further now. We're too tired. We can't go on anymore. The road is too long." It's the same when we go on pilgrimages to sacred mountains. Halfway there, our feet hurt, our heads ache, and we just turn back. Including when we circumambulate the mountain behind Larungar, I've heard that many fellow practitioners walk dozens of miles. And when we used to go to a certain particular place, some of our companions simply couldn't make it even halfway through the journey. Then, quite contentedly, they just stayed right there, leisurely eating their delicious biscuits. When we eventually came back in the late afternoon to our surprise, they were still patiently waiting there. The winding road ahead was simply too long and arduous, so they ultimately decided to turn back and come home. This teacher thought of all kinds of ways. He felt that these sentient beings were so pitiful. If they gave up such a precious place and quit halfway, it would be such a pity. So, in the very middle of the dangerous and arduous path, after traveling a significant distance of 300 yojanas, he skillfully conjured up a magnificent city in that particular place. Perhaps this entire city he meticulously created was something he carefully arranged for them within their minds. For example, when we go on a pilgrimage and get extremely tired, we say, we're almost there, let's just sit here. They carefully laid out all the comfortable mats and protective umbrellas right there in the very middle. Everyone who was struggling and falling behind now deeply felt that they had a renewed sense of hope. We have finally arrived. We can truly rest here in this central spot. That is precisely why we call this the apparitional city. That's what it means. Then he told everyone, you don't need to be afraid and don't turn back. Now, this big city, our wonderful city right here in the middle, you can simply sit here as you please. You can enter this beautiful city and be very happy and content here. If you keep going forward, the treasure land isn't far away. It's just ahead. Just sit here for now. Originally, there was still a considerable amount, more than half of the entire journey's distance left to traverse. But a truly wise and insightful leader would undoubtedly choose to do this, allowing them to comfortably stay and rest here for a while. At this very moment, these people also deeply felt, indeed, we now have genuine hope. They then rested calmly in the middle of their journey. After resting quite well, they felt that now there probably wouldn't be any more problems ahead of them. Everyone then entered this city safely and without any hesitation. Then they had the profound thought, we have already successfully crossed over. They felt no longer tired, but rather completely full of hope, and consequently stayed there. At this significant time, the experienced guide saw that they had rested well and were no longer weary. At that moment, the city that had been there before, the city he had so carefully conjured up, it simply disappeared. He then took down all of the big, colorful umbrellas. Come on now, let's go quickly. It's very, very close now, just a little bit further ahead. With this, everyone felt there probably wouldn't be any more problems. Because they had been so incredibly tired earlier, they had eaten a little bit along the way. And if they kept going like this, in the end, they really would, in fact, eventually reach the other side. He told them, keep going. Precious land is not far, it's just ahead. Now you only need to go a little further. Later, they really did eventually reach their intended destination. This is precisely what truly happens when someone genuinely wise leads the way. He makes absolutely sure they don't ever lose heart. He creates a suitable place for them to rest along the way. And only when they arrived did they realize that the place they had reached, the transit station, was not actually the ultimate destination. But in fact, this was still necessary. The same principle applies here. The Buddha told the bhikshus, the Tathagata is truly the same. Actually, the Tathagata is indeed like that wise guide, like a compassionate teacher. He profoundly knows that all sentient beings are currently in the perilous path of immense suffering within the endless cycle of birth and death. Sentient beings feel it is especially hard to get through. If one wants to save them, when sentient beings first hear the teaching of the one vehicle, they are unwilling to see the Buddha, nor do they wish to draw near. At that time he also spoke in this way. Oh, the path to Buddhahood is so long and distant. It takes 3 asamkhya kalpas. Even the ascetic practices are very lengthy. One must give away one's head, eyes, brain, marrow, and so on. If it takes such a long time to become a Buddha, then it's simply impossible. So when the Buddha saw that these sentient beings had fragile hearts, he used skillful means, and in the meantime, in order to let these beings rest, he created, just like the illusory city mentioned earlier, and spoke of the two nirvanas and the nirvana of the Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas. In fact, the nirvana of the Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas is not the ultimate. But in some of the Hinayana sutras, it is described this way. Many of the single emptiness practices in our current Tibetan Buddhism are also like this. Actually, single emptiness is not the most ultimate practice. But for the time being, in order to destroy the extremely strong grasping at true existence in sentient beings' mind stream, for these people, as long as you just realize emptiness, that everything is non-existent, this is considered the best realization. For now, we can also treat it as a kind of, if you truly understand that all phenomena are not truly existent, then you can tell them, actually, your attachment to single emptiness is also not ultimate, and then further explain to them the principle of the selflessness of phenomena. It's the same. If sentient beings abide in the second ground, the stages of Śrāvaka or Pratyekabuddha, at that time you also tell them, actually, what you have realized now is also not the ultimate truth. You have not accomplished the most ultimate and profound thing. What you truly abide in is actually very close to the profound wisdom of the Buddha. Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas have already realized emptiness on a certain level. They have already realized selflessness of persons, so it is close to the wisdom of the Buddha. You still need to continue to observe and contemplate with wisdom. The nirvana you attain after this is truly not the ultimate reality, not the most real and profound truth. Only in this way, by relying on the skillful means and profound wisdom of the Tathagata, in the end, the Buddha's one vehicle can also be described as three distinct vehicles. But in actual fact, this teacher is also creating an illusory city exactly the same in front of these sentient beings. Once you truly understand this profound concept, the treasure land will be right there, directly in front of you. However, at this very moment, this entire city that lies in between is actually not real at all. This is what the Buddha truly manifested. So here we must clearly and profoundly understand that the ultimate nirvana of the two distinct kinds of selflessness, as taught by the revered Tathagata, whether it is the nirvana of the Hinayana or the Śrāvaka vehicle, is not the ultimate, but it is very necessary. Therefore, in the Lotus Sutra, the analogy of the merchant is mainly used to illustrate this point, that it is very necessary for us to temporarily realize such emptiness. But ultimately speaking, it should be the wisdom of the ultimate one vehicle. This is truly the most ultimate liberation that we seek. All right, we'll stop here for today.
Kirgana jirano chupan, chupun tsunen droa droa sho.
Bandangara badna Sodargye. Bandangara badna Sodargye. Bandangara badna Sodargye.